We gather into this circle. We gather into this circle of care to dream, to envision, to embody and achieve the compassion we dream, the justice we envision, the dignity of each in an ever-growing circle of love and justice.
We gather to celebrate once again together here in the sanctuary. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the River Road Unitarian Universalist Congregation. My name is Kirsten Lodel. I am so honored to be serving as your intern minister this year, and we could not be more thrilled to be gathered here to celebrate together once again here in the sanctuary, here with our young people back for the first time in more than 23 months in the building for religious education, if we can please. Thank you, Rayla, for that chalice lighting and reminding us of just how wide, in fact, this circle, this multi-generational community of River Road is. And that is the theme that we are exploring in our liturgy and our worship and reflection this month at River Road, is this concept of widening the circle. This is something that's been of great concern to the entire denomination of Unitarian Universalism over the last several years, thinking about how it is that we are going to continue to evolve our ever dynamic and ever more inclusive faith tradition. It's something that we began exploring just last week in a very participatory and engaged way as we kicked off our board-led visioning process, thinking about how do we want to envision the future of River Road and what does it mean for our circle to encompass the concerns of racial and environmental justice. But also we think about this individually. What does it mean to widen the circle as we come out of nearly 2 years of, for most of us, having been forced to have much, much smaller circles and having maybe a mix of feelings about this latest phase of post-Omicron reemergence. Maybe some of us are a little bit nervous about the idea of re-expanding our circles. Maybe some of us have been waiting for this day, counting the minutes for nearly 2 years. These are not easy questions or considerations, and this is what we do together in this sacred space and time, is to ask the big questions in community together. And we are so overjoyed to have you with us, whether you are able to be here in the sanctuary or with us on our live stream, you are welcome here. To kick off our worship today, we want to invite up the wonderful leaders of our religious education and family ministry programs, Beth and Laura, to lead us in our prophetic voices. Come, let us worship together.
Good morning. My name is Laura Piervincenzi, and I am your family ministry coordinator.
And I'm Beth Irakura, your Director of Religious Education.
We are very excited to welcome our families, children, and youth back into the sanctuary for the first time in 23 long months, as Kirsten said.
We thank you for being an important part of our community here at River Road.
You may remember from a long time ago that we used to call this part of our worship service Time for All Ages. We've made a change and now call it Prophetic Voices.
One of our Unitarian Universalist sources of faith is the words and deeds of prophetic people, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love.
Each week we'll bring you the voice of one, or in this week's case, 3 people who we think fit this source.
Today's story is about 3 people who started the Black Lives Matter movement. It's called The 3 Wise Women. The 3 Wise Women by Megan Matheson.
Once there were 3 wise women. Their names were Patrice, Opal, and Alicia. They were wise because they started to notice something. They started to notice the unfair and scary things were happening around them. They were wise because when they noticed this, they spoke out and did something about it.
Alicia was upset when she heard about Black people being treated unfairly. She heard about an African-American boy who was killed and thought, I have a brother, and he is Black. Does his life matter? It was very upsetting for Alicia, and she decided to say, Black Lives Matter.
Patrice heard Alicia and agreed with her. Of course Black Lives Matter, Alicia, Patrice said. All people's lives and all animals' lives matter. But Alicia said, it feels like a lot of people don't agree that Black lives matter as much as other lives.
Patrice noticed that Alicia was right, and it made her sad. But even more than that, it made her angry. She was glad that Alicia was saying Black Lives Matter, so Patrice decided to say it too, and to say it louder.
Opal heard her friend saying Black Lives Matter, and she thought, they are right. More people need to hear this. Opal decided to tell lots and lots of people. She told everyone she knew and asked them to tell everyone they knew. Soon, hundreds and thousands of people were saying, Black Lives Matter.
Alicia said some important words. Her friend Patrice helped say them louder, and their friend Opal made sure they said it together. They said it to everyone. All 3 of them were very wise women. They noticed something was wrong, and they decided to do something.
The 3 wise women all did different things, and they all helped each other so that today there are signs and bumper stickers and lots of people all over the world saying Black Lives Matter.
So, will you say it?
Black Lives Matter. Thank you to the children and youth for being with us this morning. We now invite you to go to your RE classes. Youth group and OWL go through the doors at the front, and middle school go through the back doors and up the stairs to the Fiat Falva room, and elementary school go through the back doors as well and down the stairs to your classrooms. Thank you.
Each one of us is a thread in the wonderful and beautiful tapestry of this community. As we gather near and far this morning, we bring a host of joys as well as sorrows in our hearts. This morning, we light a candle for the magnitude of those joys that we bring with us. The ability to gather in person this morning as a people of all ages, a multi-generational people, the energy of the young ones among us in the building that brings such life and such joy among us. We also light a candle for the multitude and the depths of the sorrows in our hearts that we carry with us. Those of us who are struggling with connection, those of us still navigating the ups and the downs, the ins and the outs of the constant cycles of change that we deal with and that we navigate, those dealing with illness and health challenges. But we also light a candle for hope. Wonder, mystery, awe in that spirit of life among us that is bigger than us but carries us through, holding us on our collective journey. We know that there are never enough candles. There are never enough candles to represent all that we bring with us on these days, this morning, and each time that we gather, but we gather in the spirit of our lives and ourselves, and we know that together we can hold it all. I now invite you into a place and a space of stillness and presence and intention. Perhaps lowering your gaze, rooting yourself where you are solidly, closing your eyes and breathing deeply, and just experiencing one another's presence around you. If you're connecting to us from a distance, feeling the presence of those throughout time and throughout space this morning, rooted. We call forth among us the spirit of life and the spirit of love. That great spirit of connection that moves among us, that great spirit that carries us down the river of life, arriving us right at the destination when we need to be there, where we need to be. That great divine timing for us all. We lift up our hearts in this space this morning, knowing that we carry so much with us, that this world has not gotten any easier or any less confusing. The chaos has not died down, but somehow we have arrived still. Somehow we gather still, whether in spirit, whether in person. And we know it's not the building and it's not the space, but that the connection that we have is spaceless. That we reach out for one another and we're there. We carry with us so much weight of joys and sorrows. We hold so much for one another, and yet we gather still. We ask for presence this morning with so much gratitude for what we have arrived with and the ability to bring it all to this place. As we move through our day, as we move through our week, may we be rooted in community. May we keep this feeling of connection with us, even in hard times when it's hard to connect, times when it's hard to reach out. May it be so this morning. May it be so in days to come. May it always be so. Ashe, and blessed be. we weave a bright and vivid tapestry here at River Road, I've always felt that faith community is a lot like a learning lab of sorts, where we practice and discover what it means to be fully in this world, journeying together. There are so many ways to weave into this tapestry, ways to get involved and ways to connect. You can check out your e-weekly and also the website for a comprehensive list of those ways to get involved. Coming up on March 24th, we'll have an opportunity to engage with Free Minds DC in an event specifically tailored for River Roaders. Free Minds works with incarcerated and formerly incarcerated individuals through creative writing, job readiness training, and violence prevention outreach. This is all about the power of art and creativity in creating lasting change that we need in our communities and also beyond. You do need to register for this event, which you can do on the website, or you can follow the link in your e-weekly. Our stewardship campaign is kicking off next Sunday, and over the next several weeks, we'll learn from each other what it means to be a part of this community, what it means to be a steward of this community, what belonging feels like, and the ways in which we need each other right now. Be on the lookout for more information about our stewardship campaign. And finally, Shelter Week is coming up, March 27th through April 1st. We'll be accepting all kinds of donations, both large and small, and we're accepting them for the Interfaith Works Women's Shelter in Rockville. You can find a list of the needed items and where to sign up in the e-weekly. Our values come to life only when we live them, and what a blessing it is to have this abundance of opportunity. Each month, we extend our offering to a community organization whose values and mission align with that of ours. For February, that organization is the UU Legislative Ministry of Maryland. I actually served on the board of UULM last year, and I'm now on the Leadership Council, and I can tell you that this organization does valuable and vital work in our community and beyond. Last year was a very successful legislative session, and they're poised to make so many more positive changes this year. UULM has a very active and thriving advocacy team. They have teams on immigration, climate change, criminal justice, each team focusing on specific legislation, even how to contact lawmakers and hearings, voting sessions, and other events. They provide ways and pathways to reach out to your senators or your delegates and have your voices heard to make a lasting impact. To learn more about UULM and how to get involved, you can go to our social justice giving page. You can click on UULM and it'll direct you to their website to learn more. Of course, to give to UULM, you can text to give. If you're watching from afar, that number is at the bottom of your screen. You can also go online to text to give, or even to give directly online. Partnership is about so much more than merely giving. At the heart of it is connection, weaving, and co-creating this world. So we extend ourselves as we extend this offering, knowing that that is part of the equation and that our presence, our attention, and being together in it all is at the heart of what we do. As we share this musical offering this morning, please give deeply from your hearts as you are willing and able.
This is the sound of one voice, one spirit, one voice. It's not the sound of one voice. Mic check, mic check. It's on. Hi.
Try it again.
Take two. It's the live show. the sound of one voice, one spirit, one voice, the sound of one who makes a choice. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice.
This is the sound of voices too. The sound of me singing with you, helping each other to make it through. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices too. This is the sound of voices three, singing together in harmony, surrendering to the mystery. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of voices three. This is the sound of all of us, singing with love and the will to trust. Leave the rest behind, it'll turn to dust. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of all of us. This is the sound of one voice, one people, one voice, a song for every one of us. This is the sound of one voice. This is the sound of one voice.
What a joy it is to be able to sing in community. Those of you who enjoy singing know what we lost during this pandemic, the ability to make harmony together, the ability to share in that, and what a joy it is this morning to be able to bring that back just a little bit. So let's talk about circles, because they show up a lot, like a lot. There are so many circles around us in our lives. In a mathematical, geometric sense, there's the perfect circle, which is formed around a point, and with that smooth boundary, there's no discernible beginning or end. There's also practical circles that we find in everyday human-made objects, like tires or wheels, bangle bracelets, inner tubes. There are also sacred circles, circles that point us to spiritual knowing, circles like the tree of life and the shape that is made around that, the wheel of life, the 7 circles that create the seed of life within sacred geometry. There are celestial circles, planets, the sun, the moon. There's, of course, also my very favorite kind of circle, which is a donut, specifically a glazed donut. We are deeply connected to circles. And of all of these circles this morning, I want to focus on 2. That perfect geometric circle I mentioned earlier, and the Enzo circle. A perfect circle, like I said, is formed around a single point, and all around that point, it'll measure the same distance. Now, there are some artists out there maybe even be some artists in this room who have perfected being able to draw the perfect circle by hand. But in order for most of us to be able to draw a perfect circle, we have to use some kind of tool, such as a compass. Now, the other type of circle, an enzo, is a type of circle we find in the Zen tradition. This is a circle that, typically painted with a brush, is drawn in one circular stroke. It's left open and imperfect. In fact, to encounter the imperfection through the raw brushstrokes is the entire point and the practice of drawing an enzo. So we have these two types of circles, one that is closed and perfect in measurement, and one that is left open and imperfect and done in one stroke. Both symbolize vastly important aspects of our shared and individual lives, especially as we explore what it means to widen the circle. Although the phrase widening the circle has no distinguishable origin that I can find, this concept crops up in many writings and teachings throughout the years. Albert Einstein talked about the delusion of separation being a prison of sorts, and he's quoted saying that our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in beauty. In our wider Unitarian Universalist circle, we know this term from the recent book, Widening the Circle of Concern. This is a book born from the work of the Commission on Institutional Change, which was called to task in 2017. This commission explored, analyzed, listened to, and researched the experience of marginalized Unitarian Universalists, both in congregational life, but also at the associational level. These experiences were of lay people, religious professionals, young people, and it included identities at the intersections of race, gender, economic status, class, abilities, and other identities at the margins. The report itself was completed right before the pandemic in 2020, and the findings were compiled into a book in a study guide format. At the heart of the book, Widening the Circle of Concern, is systemic change, and that we get there through intentional action which makes space for those among us in the margins. This is a work that calls us into transformation as a people at all levels within our shared faith. So in preparation for today's sermon, I found myself in conversation with Paula Cole-Jones, who I kind of think of as the voice of the ACE Principle Project. And you might know her. She joined us at River Road many months ago to help facilitate our Board of Trustees visioning retreat session. And that visioning centered around our work with racial justice, our renewed commitments, and our adoption of the ACE Principle. I'm particularly interested in Paula Cole-Jones's concept of the community of communities. Now, this concept asserts that a church or a congregation is a larger community that holds many smaller communities within it, and all of this works together to serve the beloved community. So when I was pondering this topic of widening the circle, I found myself stuck, as often happens, in the semantics and all the angles. These topics of diversity and inclusion, racial justice, and even social justice as a whole, it often takes us to this very cognitive level. We can get stuck there. We can be stuck in defining and analyzing and contemplation. And although it's a very important place for that, we can easily end up perpetuating aspects of white supremacy culture, striving for perfection, acting out of guilt or anxiety about how far we have to go or what we can do to achieve all of our goals. It's easy to get caught up in the analysis of it all. It's easy to get caught up in the thinking of it all. So I took it out of the head and I put it into the heart. And the word that emerged for me was belonging. Regardless of the identities that we hold and bring to the space, our stories, our experiences, what it means to belong in this community is at the heart of widening the circle for me. How do we hold this circle of circles, and how do we expand it to fit all that we are? And that's actually the one question that I brought to that conversation with Paula Cole-Jones. How do we find belonging? And here's what I got from that conversation. Belonging is both deeply personal and also very communal. And for people on the margins, belonging has often looked like assimilating or fitting in, doing something to somehow meet the status quo, and that pressure comes from without, but it also comes from within. And for so long, belonging has felt like something incrementally granted to us based on what we can give, who we can be, and how we can perform. And also, interestingly, the struggle with belonging, it isn't just confined to those of us at the margins. The culture of white supremacy, including misogyny, racism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, and other markers of oppression, that culture hurts us all no matter where you stand in it. For example, misogyny hurts men. It makes it unsafe for men to process and deal with tough emotions, to be vulnerable, to ask for and receive help, because that is the pattern of oppression. It will always turn in on itself and eat itself from the inside out. That is why we say that none of us are free until all of us are free. So when I asked the question, how do we find belonging? I was asking it from a place of assumption that we have to work to belong, that we have to hustle for our worth in a community, or that we have to earn our place. And Paula, she turned it around on me, and she reminded me that my very presence, our very presence, our very being and showing up is itself an act of belonging, our inherent worth and dignity. That's our very first principle, that we don't have to earn this idea of belonging, and there is no place for assimilation. There is no need to become something other than what we are, and we make space by examining our cultures of white supremacy. We make space intentionally and actively. And later on, in reflection of that conversation, I realized that that kind of belonging alone itself doesn't widen the circle. The circle's widened when we grant each other the space to bring our full selves. When we don't expect for everyone to assimilate. When we don't expect everyone to fit in or work how we work or think how we work or look how we look or do what we do. But when we make space for what each other truly brings and for who we are authentically, that is the actual work for us. The work within the work. All of our trainings and our outreach, our partnerships, beloved conversations, all of that is in service of making more space. And when we make that space, the circle itself naturally expands to fit it. In some way, the community of communities feels like a mandala. Now, when I draw mandalas, I start with the seed of life. The seed of life begins with one circle created around one point. 6 circles are then drawn around that ring of that circle, and there you have your seed. It'll look a lot like slender petals encased by the original circle. Then you find the crossing point of 2 of the outer circles, and you create a circle around that point. Moving along the original 6 outer circles, you repeat that pattern, and after many cycles, you get what is called the flower of life. Within that flowering, all types of shapes can be created to form all kinds of mandalas. And in that way, the mandala itself is expanding. With each new circle, each new shape, each new petal, it's expanded as a whole, the community of communities. But then there's the singular community itself, an imperfect and open circle, much like that of the Enzo. One broad stroke, rough, unfinished, raw, yet inviting, and open to the space around it, unfinished, being created still. One is drawn with a compass and really specific measurements and symmetry and very precise. The other is drawn in one sitting with one stroke. Both are intensely meditative and really great teachers, and they're really great lessons, and they're both also infinite. So how can we be both? How can we be both expansive yet solid, concentric yet unfinished, measured and balanced and beautiful and open and rough and raw? And these are really great, interesting questions and guiding questions as we are yet in another time of visioning in our congregation. And visioning is almost always about figuring out how we want to move both deeper and beyond who we already are. What is it that we bring? What are our skills? What do we need? What are we seeking? What are we searching? How do we remain rooted while we grow? How do we widen this circle? I've come to believe that widening the circle is really an exercise in wholeness. Whether a perfect circle or an imperfect enzo, whether open or closed, there is a yearning for this wholeness, for connection, for expansion, for mystery, for wonder, for awe. That yearning is where we turn as we create the way forward, because those longings point us to our truths. The circle is widened each time we reach for connection and find it. Each time we learn together and dedicate ourselves to putting our learning into action, that circle grows when we leave enough space for mistakes and reconciliation and messing up and not having the right answers. When we lean into the discomfort that is the great companion of transformation and change, the circle gets wider. Each time we choose to trust, we add another circle. Each time we share in our vulnerability, each time we make space, we widen that circle. So I'll end with this Zen proverb. One day a small boy was playing near the river when he saw an old man with a long beard seated in the sand. The boy moved closer and watched as the old man drew a perfect circle in the sand. "Hey, old man, how'd you draw such a perfect circle?" asked the boy. The old man looked at the boy and said, "I don't know. I just tried and I tried again. Here, you try." The old man handed the stick to the boy and walked away. The boy began drawing circles in the sand, and at first his circles came out too wide or too long or too crooked, but as time went by, the circles began to look better and better. He kept trying, and then, one bright morning, he drew a perfect circle in the sand. Then he heard a small voice behind him. "Hey, old man, how'd you draw such a perfect circle?" So let's grab our sticks and find our sand. Let's get our pencils and our compasses, our paintbrushes, our canvases, and let's get to work. May it always be so. Ashe, and blessed be. Community is not perfect, but it sure is work. Ain't that right, Cliff, dropping things? So much work goes into creating this space. What all of us bring when we show up is more than enough, but some go above and beyond. our tech people up here making it happen online, making it happen here. I don't know if y'all know, but we are very fortunate to be able to have multi-platform worship. We're very fortunate to be in this space with this kind of technology, that allows us to be sharing live streaming, also here, high quality production. The people back home making it happen who are managing the live YouTube, who might be managing the Zoom rooms after, if people go to the Zoom rooms. It's such a blessing to be surrounded by so many capable people. And of course, Arlene, our musician this morning, blessing us with her gifts and her warmth and her beauty and her voice. Cliff knocking things over. That's what they call a Zen moment, right? So, and of course, each of you joining us either from home or here in this building. In our benediction time this morning, I invite you just to open up the palms of your hands, extending your energy to one another, whether you're at home or whether you're here in this building, and just feeling our very presence. We are enough. The circle will expand with each one of us bringing the fullness of ourselves. We need not toil or hustle. Our very presence changes and creates this community, step by step, heartbeat by heartbeat. May it always be so. Go now in peace. Our service has ended.